Hi everyone, welcome back to Seeds. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Christine.
Hi, and Seeds is a show that talks about the connectedness of us all and how we are much more alike than we think we are and all the problems that we have to deal with in this life. So today we're going to talk about, actually Christine brought it up as a good thing about, there's a song by one of the greatest icons of our time called Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And today we're going to talk about facing your man in the mirror.
Or your woman.
Or your woman.
But yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of being willing to look at yourself, I think Michael Jackson, where the lines in that song, you know, I'm talking about the man in the mirror, I'm asking him to change his ways.
Yeah.
That asking him to change his ways is really speaking to a huge level of humility that we all must employ when we are really, really committed to ensuring that we are operating at our optimal self at all times. And it's a constant process.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, they may feel that because they've sort of overcome one mountain in their life in terms of growth, that therefore, you know, that's it, that's all that they have to do. But I think that we've all learned, you go to any mountain range, the Andes, the whatever, as soon as you climb one mountain,
The clouds.
all of a sudden you see there's so many other peaks
Yes.
of mountains
Yes.
that are there for us to climb. And it's the same thing that can be said about our individual journeys, our individual climbs in our lives, that we really have to be committed to climbing all of the mountain ranges within ourselves, because there's so many. And I think that it's so hard sometimes for us to be willing to look at ourselves, to really look at that man in the mirror. And it's scary, actually.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times we look at the mirror, but we're not actually looking through the mirror.
No.
We're looking at the glass,
surface. Yes.
you know? But we're not really willing to see who is looking back at us.
Yes.
And this is really what Tracy and I want to talk about here and spend some time here and invite not just you all, because like I said, it's not a destination, it's a journey.
Always.
It's a constant process that we're doing here. So why do you think we haven't done this as much as we could? Because really, if all of us looked at the man in the mirror and really constantly did that, I would say that there likely wouldn't be so much hurt and pain experienced in our society. And because when we look at the outward manifestation of our society, we see that there's so much negativity
Yes.
that is happening, that is exerted from people and felt by people. So I think we can fathom to say that most of us are not really looking at that man in there. Why? Why?
I think that a lot of people don't want to accept, we spoke about this before, but a lot of people don't like to accept certain truths about themselves, and they don't even recognize it as a truth. And I think, like I said before, you can't fix a problem if you don't even recognize there is a problem.
Right.
And I think a lot of people choose to think that they're not the problem.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, oh yeah, people recognize there's a problem, but it's them.
That they don't realize that, they can point their finger at you're the problem, not me.
Not me.
People have to learn to accept that we are all the same. We all have our ups and downs. We have our good and our bad. And I just find there's some people that don't want to even remotely recognize that other side of them. And I think that's what the problem is, why a lot of people won't go deeper than the surface.
Yeah.
And we see it in society all the time too, because most of the society, especially what you see in the media, is only about the surface.
Oh gosh, yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's always about them. It's always about what's happening. It's always about look what they're doing or look what has happened. And I actually believe that our society is truly a reflection of something within us that we, on an individual level, have not dealt with.
Yes.
And yeah, this is big. And yeah, it's such a huge thing because I think we've been so tied to we've said this before in other segments as well, tied to who we are and our identities,
Mm-hmm.
and we are always right.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does take a whole lot of humility and intention to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to look at myself for the betterment of myself and for humanity on a whole. And it's well and good in theory to say that because most people, I think, if they hear this, they'll be like, well, I do that. It's all subjective. Everybody is all sits there and says, well, yeah, I do. That's not me, because who they're talking about right now is not me.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who they're talking about. This is what they're saying. This is what I think a lot of people could be saying to themselves. And who knows, if I was sitting on the other end of this camera watching us talking about this, I might even initially come with that same attitude, because I feel I've done so much work within myself. I could be watching a program like this and saying, oh yeah, I know a lot of people who they're talking about. Oh, there's this one, there's this neighbor, there's this friend of mine, there's this, but I would detach myself from the message of what's being said, and I think we all have a tendency to do that. Yeah. And that's fine. But what we're inviting you to do is to actually go a little bit deeper now. So if you are over there watching this and you're saying, well, that's not me, and you don't have a resonance to it, or you're not relating to it, what I would ask you to do is ask yourself again.
Yeah.
And say, because I'm sure none of us can say we're perfect.
No.
So now you can say, okay, now what is it that I might not be seeing, or that I haven't been willing to open my eyes up to, that I may discover just simply because I asked again, simply because I decided not to just look at the glass surface and look truly at that person who will look familiar to you, but what's really there.
Yes.
I think that's what and if you got to ask the second time, look, if you ask the first time and you got nothing, and you ask the second time and you got nothing, I promise you there's something there. So ask a third, ask a fourth, ask a fifth, until you find something, because there's always areas of growth and development. There's always, Tracy mentioned when we were discussing this show today, Tracy mentioned perceptions. It's our perceptions of ourselves and our perceptions of the world.
Yep.
And we all come from, how many people are there? I go by the McDonald. I guess it's grown from 6 billion served.
7 point something billion.
So we've grown. We've grown a good 15-20% since McDonald's put out that 6 billion served, right? But I guess I've just lost my train of thought. Yeah, when we were talking about this, it was about how each one of us, we're almost like a little attraction point, right? Our own little point of attraction in this world, and from that place, we look at the world from that vantage point.
Right.
And we have to understand that everything that we're looking at is like a landscape. It's almost like you're looking at a picture. And you're seeing the picture, and how you see the picture may be very different from how I see the picture. Maybe it might have a lot of similarities, maybe because Tracy and I are sort of in the same way of how we look at things. We may see a picture and there'll be probably large similarities to how we see the picture, but there's always going to be some differences.
Yes.
No matter how close you are to somebody, even with identical twins in the world, who their biological makeup is exactly the same, but their experiences through life has now shaped and colored how they look at the world, the lens from which they look at the world. So, in understanding that, you have to know that your position is not the absolute right position. It is just one of many. It is. I remember Neil Donald Walsh said in that book, most people, whether they're from a religious standpoint or anything, it's mine is the right way.
Yes.
And what he says is, I'd really like to invite you to look at it like this and say, mine is not the better way. Mine is merely another way.
Another way, yep.
And if from that point of view, I think that in there's huge opportunities for us to look at ourselves and to look at how other people are looking at things, and to make sure that we are really doing our work.
Yeah. Well,
because there's much work to be done.
Exactly. And like I said before, anything that is put out into this world by each individual starts with that individual.
Absolutely.
So it's absolutely imperative that we do look beyond the surface. And it could be even someone pointing something out to you before getting defensive, find out what they have to say, and then for a second, even if you have to, just stop and think, are they right? Am I doing that? Because I think that is the first step to examining yourself.
Yeah.
And if there is a problem, and then you will recognize it, and whether you choose to act like you don't recognize it, but at least you have touched on the, scratched the surface. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, it's supremely important in all of our walks.
Absolutely.
And to make each other's walk better.
Yeah. There's a man who you introduced me to on Facebook, and you'll know his name, the man who does those quotes, and he does the numbers. You know who I'm talking about? What's his name? He does these inspirational things, and he does the numbers. And recently he did one where he was looking at the difference between sympathy and empathy, and talking about how with sympathy, you are apart from the condition of the person that you're looking at. Whereas with empathy, you are now standing in the place of what they're experiencing. And why I'm bringing that up now is because I had my own little epiphany the other day when I was thinking about my own growth and my own, I think empathy plays a huge part in us being able to look at ourselves, because we need to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and not just stand within our own. Because in our own, like I said, that's our own little point of attraction. And if that becomes all there is and all that matters, then we're never going to allow ourselves to grow beyond that point where we are. And I had my own little thing with that, in that what I'm doing now and what I'm going to try to do now is to expand my awareness. Okay, look. I look at me and you as separate people. And you and I, we come from that place of, you know, we're all one, okay? At least that understanding. And even though you're standing over there, Trace, and I'm over here, we're energy. I'm a dense, but I'm just a whole bunch of matter in a dense form, and you are as well. But in between us, there's still this shared energy that we are, that we're a part of, both of us equally. I look at it almost like, remember those Venn diagrams? Yes. Right? So you've got the circle and this circle that overlaps, and in the middle there's this shared energy field that we're a part of. So as I was saying, like, so now what I'm trying to do is, in understanding this connectedness with all of us, okay, so let's suppose you and I get into an argument, okay? Of course, you kick my ass, but we get into an argument, okay? I would just act tough and hope it scares you away.
You're funny.
Okay, so we get into... I would. Straight up, she would. All right, so we get into an argument, and I have my post here, and it's like, you know, she just doesn't see it from my point of view, and she's obviously out to lunch and whatever, and I'm sure you're over there thinking the same thing, right, for this exercise. What I now need to do, in order for me to look at the man in the mirror, I need to first recognize that the man in the mirror, and this might sound all airy-fairy and all new age if you want, but I now have to start beginning to look at the man in the mirror representing all of us on a whole.
Yes.
Okay? That who should be looking back at me should be a reflection not just of myself, like narcissists, right? That what we did with that, not just of myself, but the whole collective of us, of humanity. And to the extent that the person, the woman sitting on this side, is unable to see anything except what is on this side and not more, I think I'm failing in my opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So now what I want to do is I want to be able to take that element of empathy, which I think is the only way that we can grow beyond ourselves, grow beyond our own point of attraction, and now be able to, I look at it like maybe we kind of have like, each one of us has like a membrane, let's say, around us, and that makes you Tracy, and there's sort of like a dense membrane around you, and then there's this membrane around me. What I would like to do is to be able to push my membrane, push myself and stretch it so much that at the very minimum, it connects to yours.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, there's this space and this distance between us that I will never be able to relate to it from your perspective. Now, somebody might say, we're talking to Russell Brand,
Mm-hmm.
Russell Brand might say, I want to push it to the point where it breaks
Mm-hmm.
and there is no separation,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm actually feeling what you're feeling from your point of view
Mm-hmm.
totally. And really, I would even say, if I got to the place of the membrane level, I'd like to push it to that place too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's, I know we're kind of going in maybe a different sort of
That's okay.
way of describing it,
Mm-hmm.
but we really have to, in order to look at ourselves, we have to begin seeing all of us in ourselves and not just that one individual Christine of
Yes.
who I am.
But there is also the other side that I would like to speak to is that
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, when you talk about empathy, a lot of people, I think for them to even, how do I put it? A lot of people don't even have empathy for themselves. And I think that is a huge problem of why they don't want to even face certain things.
Tell me about that.
Because I'm thinking in the sense that some people don't know how to forgive themselves for the wrongs they've done. So they'd
Mhm.
rather bury it and act like it never happened than actually face it.
That's a process, though.
Yeah.
I don't mean the process of forgiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you're at a place where you have to forgive yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're at a place where you see that you've done something wrong.
Yes.
Which to me is part of half the battle too. That you
Mhm.
first see
Yeah.
that you've done
Mhm.
something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to get to a place of forgiving yourself so you can free yourself.
Mhm.
So that's an interesting.
I think there's a lot of people out there, that's why they'd rather, like they know, like when someone puts something in there to them that may be a character flaw, some people I think actually do recognize it and choose to either brush it off or ignore it or put it away because they don't want to face that.
And that's exactly,
Yeah.
that's actually what
Yeah.
we're talking about,
Yeah.
which is, you know what?
And I think a lot of it,
be
yeah.
willing to
Yeah.
be willing. Understand you have a responsibility
Mhm.
not just to yourself, but to everybody that you come in contact with to
Mhm.
be able to be willing to do that.
To do that,
It's,
yeah.
and that really, at the
And
end of the day,
that's-
is humility.
Yes, and that's what I think a lot of people lack.
It's humility and
Yeah.
ego.
Yes.
It's pride. It's I don't want to be wrong. You
And
know,
I've
and
witnessed
maybe you're
that,
right, and
yeah.
maybe to what you're saying, it's recognizing just how wrong you are, and understanding that for you to accept it,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be dealing with a shitload
Yes.
of guilt,
And they don't want to.
and they're afraid to deal with
that. It could
with
be
that.
out of fear.
Yeah, that they're
Yeah.
afraid of what's looking.
So they'd rather just pretend like it's not even there.
Yeah, so even before, so
Mhm.
okay, you know what? I'm gonna pull back now. So even before you get to the place of being able to see beyond that mirror of everybody,
Mm-hmm.
there are some, like you said, who they can't even look at just themselves,
Mhm.
just themselves.
Mhm.
So forget even tying in the fact that
Mhm.
I'm connected to everyone.
Mhm.
There are some people who
That have to,
can't
that's my
even
point.
be willing, and really, yeah, who really are not willing,
Mhm.
have not been able to even just look at the
Yeah.
self
Yes.
point of attraction,
Yes.
just that alone.
Yes.
And it is scary,
It is. Yeah. It absolutely is scary. But
especially if there's a monster looking back at you
Yeah.
that you haven't dealt with. But
Yeah.
it's your job to slay that monster.
Exactly. And you have the power.
And you're the only
to do
person
it.
who can. You're the only
Exactly.
person who can do it.
Exactly. People can say whatever they want and do whatever, but you have to make the decision within yourself that I want that gone.
Yeah,
That has to go.
that has to go. And yeah,
Because even a lot of people that I know in my life, it's not only just a defense mechanism for them; it's a protection mechanism for
Coping,
them.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah, that's how they protect themselves because of maybe past hurts or whatever. So they protect themselves by totally putting this wall that can't be penetrated,
and
even for themselves.
And that's so
Mhm.
true. And I think what I would say is that at whatever stage that you've had to build this wall, and that
Mhm.
could have been maybe you were younger, maybe you were abused, maybe a lot of things, and you then had to put this wall. That wall has now become part of who you are.
Mhm.
What I would say is good on you for building a wall of protection that protected you, that kept you alive,
Mhm.
that kept you safe for that moment in time. What I would say to you now, though, is ask yourself if that wall is still serving you.
Yes.
Ask yourself if you need that wall, because a lot of people are now in and enclosed in this wall to the extent that they don't know. They're still afraid that the same threats that caused them to build that wall in the first place are still out there.
Yeah.
And some of them might be. But what I would say is that ask yourself now, is that wall serving you? And is that wall blocking you from being connected to other people as well?
And receiving.
And receiving. And maybe tell yourself that, you know what, like these things that happened to you before that made you have to build that wall, they never should have happened to you. They were not your fault.
Yep.
You did what you had to do in order to survive it. But now, decide for yourself that there's more to your world than just what is now enclosed in this wall that you've been in. And challenge yourself. I'm not saying go and get a bulldozer and just tear down the wall. In fact, I don't even think that's possible. But maybe just allow yourself to take one brick
at a time.
And take one brick off. It's going to still feel uncomfortable with one brick off. But allow yourself the necessary time to get comfortable with that one brick off. And once you do that, challenge yourself to get out of, there was this life coach that I saw on TV, and he was saying, he calls it the discomfort zone. We have to be willing to push ourselves out of our comfort zone into the discomfort zone. So even with one brick removed, feel that. Feel how that feels. You're still safe. You're still safe. Take another brick off.
Yeah.
Get comfortable in that. Take another brick off. And you might discover that the whole world has changed around you from what you remembered when you built that wall. That it's a whole new world out there, you know. And all I think Tracy and I really want to begin to do is to invite people to see, experience, understand this vast, abundant world that we could have, that is there for us to have. But if we keep doing what we've always done, we are never, ever going to be able to experience anything more than what we've always had.
Exactly.
You know, so...
Exactly, I was going to say, every time you take down a brick, at least it's leaving a little opening for you to pierce through.
Totally.
You can pierce through and get a glimpse of what you might be missing.
And I'll tell you something, man. The taste of freedom is the most decadent taste that you will ever have.
Exactly. So yeah, it's best that you don't keep yourself in your own prison.
Yeah.
You may think it's protection, but is it protection or is it becoming a prison for you now?
Is it becoming a prison for you? And then are you then becoming almost a weapon in and of yourself towards others?
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Where you can't get close to people, and that you know, could be hurting people as well without even, not intending to, but without realizing
But still,
it.
yeah.
At the end of the day, again, this comes up every time, we have a responsibility to ourselves.
Yes.
But that responsibility, the more we recognize that we are so much more than ourselves, we then recognize that that responsibility then expands to everybody else as well. So we have to look at that man in the mirror, that beautiful, beautiful woman in the mirror who, you know, and beautiful man, right? And begin seeing ourselves that way and doing, how can I put it? We need to begin looking at our true selves and aligning ourselves to what the true image of ourselves is, you know, so that we can.
And also, once you do that part of it, to then learn to put yourself in other people's shoes and try to view it from their perspective. To give yourself a broader understanding of why they might be pointing you in a direction of something. I think you have to learn to also step in other people's shoes, but first do your inner work, and then step outside yourself and try to look from another perspective. Everybody
that shows up in our lives, my whole perspective has really changed, and so in my approach, my intention. And I now see that everybody and every situation that shows up in my life, I really and truly regard it as an opportunity to be able to see an aspect of myself and to decide who I am going to be relative to that circumstance. you know, and I know within myself who I am deciding to be is the best and greatest version of myself that I can possibly be. So I will stop at nothing to push through those barriers. It's hard.
Of course it is.
You know.
But I think the first thing, I think there was a song back in, but the first thing you should do in any situation like that, or any situation, is stop and think. Yeah. Stop and think before reacting.
Yeah. Respond.
Or respond exactly. Well, if you stop and think, it's going to be a response.
That's right.
But if you just go off the top of your head, it's a reaction.
Yeah.
So the best thing you could do, which I've learned, trust me, I was one of the most reactionary people I could think of. But I have learned to now, wait a minute, stop and process things before I react or respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the big key.
Yeah. So we opened this discussion up with our Michael Jackson, who I was going to marry. We opened it up with the man in the mirror, and I think closing it, in part of that song, he says, if you want to make the world a better place, just look at yourself and then make that change. So we invite you all to do it. We promise you that we will continue to be doing it ourselves in our own lives. And really, really, really encourage all of us to do the same thing. So, with that, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, please subscribe to our channel so you can get notifications on when we put a new video up.
And if you like what you're hearing, and if you think somebody can benefit from what we're saying, and for what the overall theme of this program is, please share it. Share it. And we, you know, so I guess we're going to close now, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Seeds. And Tracy and I, we would like to know, what seeds are you planting today?